Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to talk you through one of the key characters in Of Mice and Men, which is Slim, otherwise known as the Prince of the Ranch. Through this you should be able to use this as a revision tool in preparation for the exam if a question on him was to come up. Or not just a question on him, but maybe certain themes that would link to Slim's character. So one thing that I think works well in terms of a revision tool for mapping out the characters is to think if they were to come up in the exam, which are the key scenes to look at, which are the key quotations, what themes does that character link to, and also what links can be made to the context. So for Slim, some of the key moments you may wish to talk about in an exam could be when he meets the men for the first time and how he is described. We find out that he's a jerkline skinner, that he's like a temple dancer. There's lots of beautiful description in there to focus on and to get your teeth into. So that would be one of the key parts to focus on if a question on Slim is to come up. Also, although he's maybe the more calm, caring character, the part in which he talks about drowning the pups might be a hint of actually his cruelty almost. So that could be a part that you'd focus on maybe for a different way of perceiving his character. We also have the scene in chapter 3, at the start of chapter 3, which one of my students spoke about, which I thought was a really nice point, is that it's almost like a confession between someone going in to confess their sins and a priest. The actual scene is just Slim and George, and it's actually quite intimate. It's not very often we see just a couple of characters there on their own, especially the men, other than George and Lenny. And in that time, it's when George is described as speaking in a tone of confession, and he's admitting what he's done to Lenny in the past when he used to play tricks on him, one of which nearly led to Lenny drowning. He also opens up about them escaping from weed after what Lenny did. So he's opening up and confessing to Slim, almost as if it is in that confession box. And Slim is there almost as a priest, listening, not really saying much other than to give guidance, understanding. And you could back that up the fact that in that scene he is referred to as having godlike eyes. So he's not passing judgment, he is there to listen ultimately and act as a moral guide for George. Also, you might want to talk about the fight scene when quite a few of the characters are involved. However, he doesn't actually engage in the physical side of that. So some of the key quotations that either he says or are used to describe him. Prince of the Ranch, about Slim's word was law. I drowned 4 of them right off. Ain't many guys travel around together. I don't know why. Maybe everyone in the whole damn world is scared of each other. And he has godlike eyes. Okay, I'm not going to talk about these yet because I will on the following slide. It's good to remember the juicy quotes are one that you can say a lot about, but also these quotations are all quite small, which will then make them easier to remember when your exam is going to be closed book. Okay, so how we would then link this to the context. If you were doing the exam on the IGCSE for Edexcel, then it will be worth 50%. So it's important that you know the context really, really well, and never be vague or make sweeping statements, which we will focus on more so when we do look at context in more depth. So what you could talk about contextually in regards to Slim is the life of migrant workers. So he perhaps is different from the other migrant workers in a way that he has more power and authority. So that could tell us, could be a message to the reader, that if you work hard, you can be more valuable. He is a role model to the other men at a time where otherwise they might not have any hope. However, one could argue, if you're being more cynical, but perhaps also realistic as well, is despite the fact that he might have more of a sense of authority on that ranch, ultimately he is still a migrant worker. And this sense of authority that he has between the men might simply be an illusion. Outside of that ranch, would he have any power in society? Perhaps not. Okay, we could also think about the theme of human disposability. If these dogs are symbolic of the men, this idea of survival of the fittest, notice how he when they want to kill the dog, when they're going to kill Candy's dog, he doesn't argue with that. He realizes that the dog is ancient, maybe doesn't have much value anymore, and he even says to Candy, "Look, you can have one of my new pups." It's like out with the old, in with the new, and this idea of the survival of the fittest, and that once something gets old, and then it's just easily disposable. That could be metaphorical for the men themselves, and that Candy's dog could actually symbolize Candy. The idea that now he is getting old, he has a disability. Ultimately, will he then be pushed out and replaced by new migrant workers who are much more fit and can do more work? So Slim kind of upholds that as well. I don't think he does it in a cruel sense, as in Carlson does, where he just wants rid of him because of the smell. But in the fact that he drowns his pup straight away, and then he condones the killing of Candy's dog, shows that maybe he does believe in this idea of disposability. And okay, then next, the idea of masculinity in 1930s. So actually Slim does not need to be aggressive. He doesn't engage in physical fights. Doesn't feel the need to do that to uphold his masculinity, unlike a character such as Curly. Candy also states that Slim don't need no high heel boots. Where we have got the boss who wears high heel boots to prove that he is not a labouring man, and then Curly also does the same, as if to set themselves apart from the other men, to mark their authority, their hierarchy. If you think on a literal level, that those high heel boots will make them taller, but also on a metaphorical level will make them stand over the other men. Slim doesn't need that. He doesn't need that to prove his authority or uphold his masculinity. With that then, perhaps Steinbeck is challenging the stereotypical masculine man of 1930s, which was associated with being aggressive, engaging in physical combat. Instead, he might be proposing the attributes such as loyalty, reason and respect, and more attractive qualities for a man. Okay, this is a good thing to do then in terms of your revision. So think for the character, the key moments, the key quotations, and then the context. When you are revising though and learning quotations, and you might be using flashcards to do that, it's really important that you know quotes going into that exam. But also, if you don't know what to say about these quotations, then the quotes are only going to get you so far. So another good thing that you could do is once you have those quotations, think about analysing them, what you're going to say about them. So that's what I have done on here. So for the key quotations in blue, I've put next to this the analysis to go with it. So what do these quotes actually tell us about Slim? Okay, so him being prince of the ranch, the connotations of the noun prince are power and loyalty, to immediately introduce the level of authority Slim has on the ranch. Despite being a fellow migrant worker, the men look up to him and respect him as if he was superior, such as a prince. It's also described as Slim's word was law, as in his word is final, and his words are heavier than the other men. Everyone listens to them and respects them, just as we would the law, as in his words are there to be followed. Okay, so this metaphor, since Slim's opinion on the ranch is law, Candy agrees, like some examples, Candy agrees to his decision and allows Carlson to shoot and kill his ancient dog. That could also foreshadow Lenny's tragic fate by the end of the novel. This conveys Slim's authority, which he does not earn through intimidation like Curly, or through position like the boss, but through his hard work, his calm demeanour, his intelligence and respect for the other men. Perhaps Steinbeck, yet again, is showing how these are more favourable attributes. But maybe some things throughout the novel wouldn't happen if it weren't for Slim. Okay, I drowned 4 of them right off. We've already spoken about that his belief in survival of the fittest. Although you could argue that ultimately he is trying to save them from future suffering if he knows that they wouldn't survive anyway. The phrase "and right off," it seems quite callous, and the active drowning is still quite violent. I think this one is one of the most important quotations throughout the novel. When he says, "Ain't many guys travel around together. I don't know why. Maybe everyone in the whole damn world is scared of each other." Okay, when Slim meets George and Lenny, he almost seems to be in awe of their relationship. Because migrant workers would travel alone, because it was easier for them to find work when it was so competitive to find employment, he seems to admire the relationship. The adjective scared signals the hostility between the migrant workers when they are having to compete at the height of the Great Depression. And he's acknowledging that hostility between men. And then the last one I've got here, his godlike eyes. The adjective godlike again reinforces his power on the ranch, because who has more power than God? Yet he doesn't use his power in the way that, say, Curly does, where he's almost like a tyrant and uses his power on the ranch to almost abuse the other men and make their life difficult. Instead, he uses his power to invite trust and to demonstrate compassion. George's confession in the intimate scene with Slim is like a confession to a priest. Instead, he uses his power and authority on the ranch as a way to act as a moral guide and a compass for the men on the ranch. Okay, I hope that helps. Good luck with your further revision on Slim.